Mhm. So I'm trying to get the live stream going, except I am trying to find some sort of a chat box. Maybe we can find a chat box over here because it would make it a lot easier to interact with you guys if I had a chat box. Okay, let's see here. Let's see here. I know I've been able to make. I know I've been able to make live streams off of my phone and been able to see it through the notebook, but this is a bit different because I don't see how I would see the chat coming over onto the notebook. I don't even see it going live. So start recording, start virtual camera. It says streaming, fade, transition, image, filters. What does filters do? Nothing. See? Okay, properties. Looks good. Marley. Saint Marley always looks good where he is, watching over us, bringing us happy, joy and happiness. And just see if I can get this chat box up here. How do I get a chat box up? I get, oh, let's go here live. Live. 3 weeks ago. It doesn't show me going live at all here. Strange, because it says I'm live here. Let's see here. Chat box, maybe. Give us a chat box one time. 220 by 1080. Settings. General. Appearance. Default area. Stream. It's all supposed to be good. Output audio, video, accessibility, advanced, associated chat box. Chat box, man. Chat box. Fuck. Let me get the chat box, bro. Settings. I was already here, right? So, output, streaming, chat box. Why doesn't it just say chat box? I'm surprised that they don't have something that just says like put up a chat box. It'd be like it seems like the most one of the most used type of buttons that would be used. And ignore streaming service setting recommendations, audio. That's all good. Output's good. Hot page accessibility. I don't understand. Why can't I see it on my phone if I'm looking? Why can't I see a live stream content type live? Why? It should just come up here saying that I'm live, and then I'd be able to click on it and say that. Okay, what kind of restrictions? Not made for kids. Okay, it's not made for kids. All right, then. How about that? All right, two. You. It's got to make these things look perfect. Okay, so studio mode. One side, left side is one that I can see. The right side is the one that you guys see everything virtual. Start virtual camera. Chat box. Why no chat box? I want to chat with you guys. Talk about this serious situation that we have over here, which is which I guess okay. I don't see the chat box and I don't see how to get to the chat box, so I'm just gonna have to read it off to you as I see it because these are the stats that came over just recently from late 2024 into 2025, and these are under the new Gemini 3 search engine capabilities. So should be, if unless we're being lied to by the internet, the most accurate stats that we can get. And what it says basically here is the recent major fact sheets and reports released in late 2024 and throughout 2025 provide a detailed look at global homicide trends. The most critical updates come from the UNODC and UN Women, specifically on femicide released in November of 2024, and the Garape Institute, updated mid 2024, and the Institute for Economics and Peace in June of 2024. Here's a detailed breakdown of the key findings from these recent releases. Okay, this is not going to be good, is it? Or hopefully, I mean, it's never good. One death isn't good. The UNODC and UN Women, Femicide and Gender-Related Killings, released in November of 2024, 1 year ago. So the report says that femicides in 2023, global estimates of intimate partner family member femicides right? This is the most current major statistical release focusing specifically on gender-based lethal violence. Okay, so that means this is violence against women. Headline statistics of in 2023, approximately 51,100 women and girls were killed worldwide by an intimate partner or family member. And now 51,100 seems like an awful lot of people, and it is. One is a lot, but there are more than 8 billion people on the planet. So, um, statistically speaking, I would say the number is very low, but I mean, obviously, it's if you are one of the 51,100 women, it is a very high number. So the daily rate, this equates to 140 women and girls killed every day, or one every 10 minutes by someone in their own family. So on this planet, here on this planet Earth, the daily rate is that 140 women and girls are killed every day, or one every 10 minutes by somebody in their own family. Most likely the father, I would imagine, for like those honor killings and stuff like that, is my guess. So that comes down to, 10 minute, one person for every 10 minutes by someone in their own family. The home danger. While men are the primary victims of homicide globally, so global homicide rates are 81% for men globally. Women are disproportionately killed in the private sphere. So 60% of all female homicide victims are killed by partners or family, compared to only 12% of the male victims. And this is obviously a huge disparity, clearly. And it says by women are being killed their by their partners, either male or female partner, most likely male, and by but there are some crazy ass bitches out there, butch dykes out there that'll kill you too. Um, or by a family member. So I'm going to lean. I wish they would break those numbers up, partners and versus family, because I'm sure the partners is like off the chart. I would think would be off the charts compared to the family. Anyway, so regional disparities. Africa has recorded the highest absolute number of intimate partner family related femicides, estimated 21,700 victims, and the highest rate per capita per 100. America and Europe. In these regions, the majority of female domestic homicides are committed specifically by intimate partners. 64% in Europe, 50%, 58% in the Americas. In contrast to Africa and Asia, other family members, parents, siblings, or in-laws play a larger role in these killings. That's kind of interesting. So like I said, I thought that it would be much higher actually. But it's in Europe, 64% of the women who are killed by either a family member or a partner, 64% of them are by their partner, and 50 and in contrast, 58 of the partner or family member domestic issues are by their partner. I would have thought it would have been higher anyway, but then we go on to data group, data gaps, excuse me. Okay, the report highlights a worrying trend where the number of countries reporting the specific data has decreased by 50% since 2020, obscuring the full scale of the problem. Why is that a worrying thing? It says the data gaps. The report highlights a worrying trend where the number of countries reporting this specific data has decreased by 50% since 2020, obscuring the full scale of the problem, which I will interpret as this sentence is saying that countries are lying about their femicide rates since 2020. Okay, so I guess that's what that means because they're saying they don't believe 50% of the femicides that there's been a 50% decline of femicides since 2020. So that means there is an incredibly large margin of error in the amount of femicide, the actual femicides, which means in a way that kind of means we could just throw this whole paper out in the garbage because they're not we're not getting the complete information. But we're going to deal with the information that we get. So let's go to the um, Igarape Institute for Homicide Monitor updated in 2024. Source: Homicide Monitor data and most homicide cities analysis. The um, Igarape Institute provides the most up-to-date data on Latin America and the Caribbean, which remains the world's most violent region for lethal crime. And you're not kidding about that. I saw the highest homicide rates in the world are in the Caribbean. It's like insane, like 140,000 per 100,000 people or something like that. And I mean, it's just like absolutely off the chart. And I can only speculate why is that this has to do with economics and land space and stuff and temperature, food. Anyway, there's a concentration of violence. The homicide is highly concentrated. Just five countries accounted for 40% of all global homicides in 2023. That is insane. And these aren't Caribbean countries either. Look at this. Just five countries accounted for 40% of all global homicides in 2023. And I guess they're listing them in order, but they should give the numbers. They're listing them in order of amount. But Brazil, that's South America. Nigeria is Africa. Mexico is Central America. India is Asia, and South Africa is in the south of Africa, right? So just those five countries are responsible for 40% of all global homicides in 2023. That is amazing when you think about it. So the regional hotspots, Latin America and then the Caribbean. This region continues to have the highest regional homicide rates. The Ecuador crisis, a major finding in the 2024 update, is the dramatic surge in violence in Ecuador. Cities like Duran and uh, Guayaquil have rocketed up the rankings, with Bahrain registering a staggering rate of 140 homicides per 100,000 people in 2023. I've never even heard of Bahrain, let alone I've heard of Ecuador, but what is Doreen, Doreen, why would that be happening? I've never heard of Doreen. I'm definitely not going to mark that as a place I'm going to go on my calendar with 148 homicides per 100,000 people in 2023. I mean, is there even a war going on over there? Now, Jamaica historically, unfortunately, has registered very high on the homicide rate, and Saint Bob Marley from Jamaica. He's a saint of peace and happiness, and he should be um, canonized and beatified and receive sainthood. In my opinion, is he was a Christian and a Buddha and was an absolute saint. So Jamaica registers the world's highest national homicide rate in 2023, with approximately 49.3 per 100,000, though Ecuador is closing the gap. So that's country-wise. Let's see. The weapons of choice are firearms remain the primary mechanism of death in the Americas, used in over 70% of homicides in the region. far above the global average of roughly 40%. So 60% of the rest of the world are using machetes or their hands, or knives, or picks, or rocks, or whatever. The Global Peace Index for 2024 released in June of 2024. Report title Global Peace Index 2024 produced by the Institute for Economics and Peace. This report tracks homicide as a key indicator of societal safety and structure. So it says Central America improvement. One of the few positive trends noted is in El Salvador, probably after Bukele, President Bukele became president, which recorded the largest improvement on the index globally. Its homicide rate has plummeted from being the world's highest a decade ago, 10 years ago, it was the highest, to one of the lowest in Latin America today, though the report notes this has come with significant civil liberty trade offs. And what they mean by that is I think it's called Suncot prison that they have, where they're just sending everybody to prison who's associated with the MS-13 gangs or any kind of a crime. And so it is sort of a martial law. But when you're dealing with a country that has the highest murder rates or the highest murder rate in the world, what are you going to do about it? You're going to have to do something like institute martial law. You just, you have to have law and order, don't you? I mean, you don't have to have it, but if you want law and order, you're going to have to take extreme measures. Otherwise, you can take your chances. And most people don't want to take their chances. So global deterioration. Overall, the safety and security in the safety and security domain, which includes homicide, improved slightly, but this was overshadowed by a massive rise in conflict-related deaths, such as war zones in Gaza, which is a major one, and the Ukraine, and some in Africa, which I can't remember where, like there are conflicts in Africa continually, which doesn't get much press for some reason, but it should. Anyway, the least peaceful. So this report correlates high homicide rates with the least peaceful nations, highlighting Yemen, Sudan, South Sudan. The reliable homicide data in active war zones remain difficult to verify. So basically, they're saying the least peaceful places to live on the planet right now are Yemen, Sudan, and South Sudan. And Yemen has been involved in the war with the UAE for a while, and with have the Houthis, and they're against the Israelis. They've got a lot of. And then we go down to the UNODC Global Study on Homicide in 2023, key reference for 2024 and 2025. The report, Global Study on Homicide in 2023, data continues to serve as the 2024-2025 baseline while titled 2023. So they're using the 2023 numbers as the baseline for the 2024-2025 numbers. So this remains the comprehensive fact sheet source for the structural data until the next major cycle. So basically, they're going to run the information that was going on in 2023 into 24 and 25 because they do not have updated reports. That's what that means. So the global count says that the study set the global baseline at approximately 458 intentional homicides in 2021. Now that's the global count in the year 2021, 458,000 people were intentionally murdered. That's a very high number. I mean, that's a staggering number. Then they go on to organized crime. Organized crime groups are responsible for 22% of all homicides globally, but this figure rises to 50% in the Americas. And I think when they say the Americas, I don't think they mean well, maybe they do mean uh, North America, American part of North America. I would suspect it's the Central Americans, but it might not be. I know there is a high America does have a fairly high murder rate. I think nationally the American murder rate is something around 6%, and the average worldwide is something like five. So five per 100,000. So and then we move on to the youth impact. So a homicide is a youth man's crisis. Men aged between the age of 15 and 29 are the most at-risk group globally. So if you're between the ages of 15 and 29, you are the most likely to be murdered. And that has a lot to do with your hormones and the facts that you're probably 15 to 29 years old. You have different ideas about what it means to be a man and masculinity and trying to grab and seize power and stuff like that. Not to mention the other part is that your other part of your hormones from 15 to 29, less so as you get older, but especially like 15, is um, your testosterone levels are rising by levels of I think 800%, and and this rise in testosterone obviously is built in the human biological system, to reproduce and to uh, conquer enemies and stuff like that. It's something that we've had within us for hundreds, thousands of years. Um, so saying that men aged between 15 and 29 is like their fault specifically, I wouldn't agree with that in the slightest. I would say that it has a large part to do with genetics and biology, and men becoming of age with hormones inside of them, like going after a girl, another guy going after the same girl or something like that. That's not going to happen to somebody like me who's 55 years old, because I'm not chasing any women. I'm not interested in that. I'm sitting chilling. I'm watching TV. Maybe I could find a Homer Simpson to watch. I don't know. I don't even watch Homer Simpson. I use that as an example. But if I want crime, I watch crime stories on YouTube. That's the extent of it for me. All right. So then we move on to development goal failure. So this report explicitly states the world is not on track to meet sustainable development goal of 16.1, significantly reducing all forms of violence. The global homicide rate is projected to decrease only slightly by 2023, rather than as having as like having like well, not having as having something, but having cutting in half the number as targeted. That's an impossibility. I don't even know how they even come up with the idea that they would be able to cut the homicide rate in half by the year 2030. I don't, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't believe it. And I don't know where they get those numbers from. So then we'll move on to the summary of key data for 2025 planning. So if you are using this research for or policy, if you are using this for research or policy work, the current consensus data points are metric, current statistics source, global homicide course. It's about okay. So the global homicide count is about 458,000 per year. Femicide is about 51,000 per year. So this is just basically the demographic numbers, which are just saying these numbers are not set in stone. They are given that squiggly line that like it's like this little squiggly line. which means it's an approximate number. That means that's a symbol for approximation. So the next step, would you like me to drill down into specific data for a particular region like the Caribbean or Europe, or look at the specific homicide rate of a particular country you're interested in? And no, I do not. Think I've read enough to understand that these reports that we're looking at are so broadly open to interpretation, and that the true numbers are not even close to being known. But this is the data that they've been able to come up with, even though they admit in this report that they really don't know, you know, because countries aren't reporting since 2020, and they don't know how many unreported crimes are going. But murder, homicide is certainly a big factor in society, and my advice to you is to stay as far away from it as possible, and thank the Lord Jesus Christ and all the Holy Spirit for giving us the pleasure of being able to take our next breaths and breathe through the night and wake up, opening our eyes, and hopefully having some food to eat, because there are a lot of starving people out there. And thank you to St. Bob Marley, who gives us so much happiness throughout the world, and that he shall be beatified and canonized through the diocese and Jamaica, hopefully. And if it's not, I don't think that, I was told you have to go through the diocese that he was living and born in, but we'll find a way. We will find a way, because he was definitely a saint of this world. I don't think there's much denying about it. And we thanks to the wheel of Buddha, which is the wheel of life, and points to all these possibilities of life and karma and yin yang and dharma and dukkha, sukha, and all these types of things. And lastly, I always give grace to and thanks to the Saint Christopher's cross pendant. I don't have it anymore. I had one. My grandmother gave it before I became a fisherman, and it was to protect me while I went fishing. But the unfortunate truth is that after a third or fourth fishing trip, a mate and I got into a fist fight outside of a bar. I knocked him out, and then I went over to see if he was okay, and like he snapped to, and he ripped my St. Christopher's necklace off, and like threw it, and like everybody was calm by this point, and went searching for it and could never find it. And unfortunately, haven't found it. Well, obviously, I haven't found it to this day. But it was said, on the back, to my loving grandson, GTSD, for protection. St. Christopher, thank you very much. I will always love and honor. Thank you to Jesus Christ, Buddha, and all the protective saints and Buddhas of the world and all religions, Hindi and all. Peace on earth, peace to everybody wherever you are. And remember, the first victim of anger is the person who gets angry. So, thank you so much for joining us for this little quick live stream. Hopefully, next time I'll figure out how to have the chat up. So, if you have questions, I can reply uh, and interact with you guys in a more amicable fashion. But thank you very much. God bless. See you.